Aloha, welcome to Unity Church of Maui. I have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart, and I am experiencing the fullness of life. If you'd like to experience that as well, stay tuned, and we'll talk more about it in just a minute. Pause.
I feel the spirit moving in me. I feel the spirit moving in me.
There's a story about a preacher that I like, and he's retired, and he is riding his bicycle into town. And as he comes across a little boy who's selling a lawnmower, and he says to the little guy, "Hey, how much are you selling that lawnmower for?" And the little guy says, "Well, just enough for me to buy a bicycle." After a moment of consideration, the preacher says, "Well, why don't we swap? Why don't I give you my bike and you give me your lawnmower?" So the boy says, "Well, first, can I try it out?" So he gets on the bike and he rides it around and comes back. It seems like it works okay. And he says, "Okay, mister, you got a deal." The preacher says, "Okay, but let me start the lawnmower first and then we'll see." So he starts pulling on the rope and nothing's happening. And he's getting more and more frustrated and it's getting harder and harder. And then he calls to the boy and he says, "Hey, this lawnmower doesn't start." "Oh, I can't get it started." And the little boy says, "Well, it does work. You just have to swear at it. Then it'll start for you for sure." So the preacher says, "Well, you know, I can't swear. I'm a man of God. I haven't said a cuss word since I became a Christian years ago. I can't even remember how to swear." And the little boy smiles and says, "Well, just keep pulling on that rope. It'll all come back to you." I love that story. When reading Brene Brown's book this week, titled Braving the Wilderness, I was inspired by the last chapter titled Strong Back, Soft Front, Wild Heart. This chapter motivated me to write this talk. You know, I love Brene Brown's writing, and so much of her writing is based on the idea that it takes courage to live a meaningful life. Thus, my talk today is titled, Have the Courage to Live a Meaningful Life. It takes courage to live a meaningful life. It takes courage to live our best life. It takes courage to have compassion, to have faith, to trust, to forgive, and to let go. The thing that takes the most courage is the courage to be vulnerable. Vulnerability scares us. Scares me sometimes. Does it scare you? You know, vulnerability is about letting down the walls, letting down the pretenses, letting down our fears, and just being authentically who we are right now in this moment. So today we're going to look at 3 tools that will help us to be authentic, to live authentic lives so that we can experience the fullness of life. These 3 points, or these 3 things that we're going to look at today, are strong back, soft heart, and strong back, soft front, and wild heart. I have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart, and I am experiencing the fullness of life. So let's start with strong back. When we think of a strong back, we think of our skeleton, the framework upon which our body rests. It's that part of us that holds us up. And some time ago, I was giving a talk and doing some counseling with a group of people. And as I was talking and I glanced around, a friend of mine was standing and watching. And he looked at me and he did this. Without saying a word, he just stood up and he put his shoulders back. And it made me realize that I was slumped over. And so I immediately got the clues that he was sending to me, and I stood up. And I noticed that when I did that, I felt much more powerful. I held my shoulders back and my stomach in, and I just really felt presence and strong in the moment. It's so interesting. Just that little gesture made me feel so much more powerful and so much more focused, and gave so much more strength to my presentation. I know that our posture has a huge and a powerful effect on claiming our own power, and sends a message of confidence to our audience or to anyone that we're speaking to. The pandemic has given many of us the opportunity to stay home a lot more. And I notice myself that I sit a lot more than I used to. How about you? And I find myself sitting in front of my computer for hours at a time. And recently I got a stand-up desk, and I find that when I'm standing at my desk working, I feel that I'm more creative. I feel like I'm more powerful. I feel that I'm able to get focused on what I'm doing. And of course, the best part is that when I'm working standing, I have less pain in my hips and in my back. When the pandemic started, I gave a few Sunday talks sitting in front of the camera. And I realized, and I felt it, that like I wasn't able to express myself with my whole being, with my whole body. Because we know that these bodies that we have send out messages. And I know that I like to speak with my full body and feel it. And I can feel it now as I talk, that I feel so much more alert and more present when I'm standing. And I think I've watched some of my talks, and to me they feel like they're much more powerful when I'm standing and when I'm present and when I have a good posture. So I wonder, are you willing to stand in your own strength? So think about having a strong back in terms that it represents standing in your strength and presenting yourself powerfully in your life. And I want to encourage you this week to be aware of your posture. Just wherever you are, whatever you're doing, to check in with yourself and see, how are you sitting, how are you standing, and certainly to be more active. They're saying that people are a lot sicker now, or will be, because we sit too much. So my advice, my encouragement for you for this week is to spend time being aware of your posture and standing and being present to how you are presenting yourself to the world. I have a strong back. Affirm that with me. I have a strong back. Strong front, strong back, soft front. Oftentimes I notice when I feel offended, when I feel hurt, when I feel challenged, instead of having a soft front, I have an armored front. Do you ever feel that way? That some circumstances give us the opportunity to sort of get tense, right, and tough, and I'm gonna make the best of this, and I'm gonna be strong in the situation. And I find what happens if I do that, it takes me out of the space where I can totally be present to the truth of who I am, and really to the presence of spirit that wants to express itself as me. So we want to, it's so easy to put up walls and be defensive and shut down and close off our heart, especially when we feel vulnerable. So my advice for you this week, or encouragement, is to be aware of your soft front, to be aware that you are presenting yourself in a soft and loving way. There's a fun story that I like that talking about this reminds me of. And there's a mom and her 2 kids, and she's fixing pancakes. And the 2 boys, one's 9 and one's 5. And mom puts the pancakes on the table, and the boys are arguing about who gets the biggest pancake. I'm sure that happened in your childhood as well. And mom says, "Now, wait. Now, what would Jesus do if he was eating pancakes with his brother and one was larger than the other?" She said, "Jesus would give the large pancake to his brother." So the mom leaves with that advice, and she goes out of the room. And after she leaves, the 9-year-old grabs the big pancake and says, "You be Jesus." Well, that's not really an example of having a soft front, but I love the story. To have a soft front is to be compassionate and caring. It's about being vulnerable and being open-hearted. It's not always easy, and lots of times it takes just a focus in the awareness. If we want true connections in our life, and if we want to feel intimacy, and we don't want to feel isolated, we need to have a soft front. You might remember, I remember Star Trek. I watched a lot of Star Trek when I was young, and I remember this particular episode where the captain and Spock had found some of their crew members, and they were in really a dangerous situation. And the captain and Spock walked up, and they tried to get at their friends to help them, but there was a screen in the way. They couldn't get past this screen to help them. And Spock says, "Oh, Captain, I know what it is. There's a screen here. And the more we resist this screen, the stronger it is." And so they held back, and they just were present to the moment, and the screen dropped, and they were able to get to their friends and to help them. And it seems like that happens to us too, doesn't it? That we block ourselves when we get in to the place of raising our shields, or building a brick wall. And so having a soft front is about being receptive to what's happening, and to let go of our resistance, and to respond with compassion and with love. So where in your life can you soften up? Is there a situation where you find yourself getting tense, or where you sense the walls going up, and you find it difficult to communicate with someone or to be present in a situation? So where in your life can you soften up a bit? Where do you need to soften? What relationship would work better if you're able to lighten up and show more love and more compassion? And in the same way, are you brave enough to love? Are you brave enough to let the walls of resistance down, to bring your presence and your love to every situation? It takes courage to love. But we know that people who love are healthier and whole. If we bottle up our love and hold on to it, then it doesn't get expressed, and we don't experience the fullness of life. So our affirmation for this part of the talk is, I have a soft front. Say that with me. I have a soft front. So we've got a strong back, a soft front, and now let's work on having a wild heart. To have a wild heart means that we are able to embrace all of the experiences of life. To have a wild heart means that we can embrace everything in life. It means that we embrace the fun and the exciting things, and we can also embrace the challenging things, the hurtful things, the times when we feel sad. We embrace the sunny days as well as the rainy days, and just be present to life's ups and downs, and to be able to be in the moment, to love and to be passionate about what's happening in every moment. There's a great story that I like that I came across. You probably experienced it yourself. Well, let me tell you this first. Bernays says, the mark of a wild heart is living out the paradox of love in our lives. It's the ability to be tough and tender, excited and scared, brave and afraid, all in the same moment. It's showing up in our vulnerability and our courage, being both fierce and kind. Living with a wild heart is being able to acknowledge all of the things going on in the world and within ourselves, and not to be diminished by it, but to be strengthened by it, to be encouraged by it, to celebrate it. And maybe you remember Amanda Gorman? She was a woman who read the poem at the inaugural address. She read the poem of hers called "The Hill We Climb." And it was, for many of us, one of the highlights of the inauguration. This 22-year-old woman captured the nation, not only with her words, but with her poise. So what makes Gorman's delivery all the more remarkable is that as recent as college, and mind you, she's 22 years old, just graduated from Harvard, but as recently as college, she struggled with a speech impediment. Her impediment was that she dropped a whole swath of letters of the alphabet. She couldn't say, for example, the letter R. But she didn't let this challenging thing stop her from writing her poem, "The Hill We Climb," in which she used the word ride multiple times. She said that she used her writing as a form of self-expression to get her word on the page, but then also it transferred into its own speech pathology. Because she says that she read her poems over and over again, and the more that I recited out loud, the more in which I practiced the spoken word. And that tradition, the more I was able to teach myself how to pronounce these letters, which for so long had been my greatest impediment. Wow, I love this. Such a great example of living with a wild heart. Amanda Gorman is a living example of being strong and tender, of being excited and scared, of being brave and afraid, all at the same moment. She's blending vulnerability and courage. I have a wild heart. Affirm that with me. I have a wild heart. Joseph Campbell wrote, "Most people think they are looking for the meaning of life, but they're not. What they are looking for is an experience of being fully alive. To be vulnerable, to take a stand, to stand tall, to be present in our strength, to open our hearts to love and embrace experience in life so that we can be fully present. That's what life is about. Are there risks? Yes, there are. Is it worth it? Absolutely. So let's live our lives with a strong back, soft front, and a wild heart, and experience the fullness of life. Let's say that together as an affirmation. I have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart, and I am experiencing the fullness of life. I invite you to close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath, breathing into this moment, feeling the presence that's right now. And even as you sit, I invite you to check into your posture. That even your posture in meditation is strong and powerful. That you're sitting up straight, you're breathing into your body, and even your breath is done with power. Your breathing is powerful. Breathing in, breathing out into this moment. And allow yourself to be totally present right now into the strong, beautiful, loving person that you are. And even to focus on the center of your being. That in this strength, you can breathe into the soft front, into the softness that you are, into the compassion that is the essence of who you are. Strong and soft. Breathing in. And in the same way, imagine having a wild heart, and that you are living the fullness of this life. That you embrace every moment. That you feel the ground beneath your feet and the sky above you and the beauty of your relationships. And that wildness is the love that is expressing as you embrace every moment. And let's take just a moment or two to gather together in the silence to experience the fullness of this moment together in the silence. I have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart. And I am experiencing the fullness of life right now. Breathing in and breathing out. And when it feels comfortable, I invite you to bring your awareness back to this moment. And Let's say the affirmation together one more time. I have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart. And I am experiencing the fullness of life right now. Well, I'm grateful for you for being here today and being able to share this message with you. And I'd like to invite you at this time to prepare your contributions to Unity Church of Maui, your love offerings, and to know that we offer these messages and these services on a love offering basis. And we thank you for receiving that which we give. And I like to think and to believe that as we contribute to this ministry, we are a part of it, and we share the camaraderie and the communion and the community with each other. So your gifts are a blessing to us and allow us to continue to do this work. So I invite you to take your gift and to hold it, and let's affirm and pray together our prayer for prosperity, which begins through a grateful, giving heart. My mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing, infinite supply. And so it is. And if you're wondering how you can give to Unity Church of Maui, you can go to our website, which is www.unityonmaui.org, and click on our safe contribution link there. And you can also send a check the old-fashioned way to 483 South High Street in Wailuku. And thank you for your gifts. I've got just a couple announcements today. Next week, my talk title is Original Goodness, Not Original Sin. Have you ever been told that you were bad? Has anybody ever told you that you were bad? Or have you been told by somebody that you loved that you were bad? Many of us heard this as a child, and sometimes we've internalized it and believed that this was true. And even in a minuscule way, some of us have let that define who we are. In next week's talk, titled Original Goodness, Not Original Sin, we're going to explore the origins of this belief and dismantle it so that we can be free of this belief and live as fuller and greater expressions of spirit. So I look forward to seeing you next week for that. And also, you know that we are in the middle of a capital campaign to raise some funds to buy a new van, which we're hoping to be able to use very shortly when we return to our High Street location after we've all got our vaccines and we're all healthy. And our goal for this fundraising is $10,000. And right now we're at $2,125. So thank you for giving to that. And we are so blessed by whatever you can give. So thank you. And you can send those gifts to Unity Church of Maui at 483 South High Street in Wailuku, Hawaii 96793. And you can also donate by going to our website. And so I think that's about it for today. You can find more talks like this on our YouTube page. And if you'd like to join us live on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock Hawaii time, you'll find those links in our newsletter and on our webpage. So with that being said, I think that's about it for today. Why don't we end as we often do by praying together the prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us, The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is. God bless you, friend. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you, and I behold the Christ in you. Until then, aloha.
Where I live, there are rain.